Michael and Neo in one film. Ah, hell yeah. Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with a new episode of Halloween Horror Reviews 5, and today's episode is going to be for 1997's The Devil's Advocate, which stars Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino, a film from 1997. So, what is the plot of The Devil's Advocate? A ruthless young Florida attorney named Kevin Lomax, who has never lost a case, is recruited by the most powerful law firm in the world. In spite of his mother's disagreements, as apparently she compares New York to Babylon, he accepts the offer and the money that comes along. But soon, though, his wife, played by Charlize Theron, starts feeling homesick and seeing devilish apparitions. However, Kevin is sinking in his new cases and pays less and less attention to his wife. His boss and mentor, John Milton, played by Al Pacino, seems to always know how to overcome every problem, and that just freaks out Kevin. So, how was this film made? Well, Andrew Niederman, he had wrote The Devil's Advocate as a novel. It was published in 1990 by Simon & Schuster. Andrew had believed this story could be adapted into a film. Like, Niederman approached Warner Bros. And claimed to have led a successful sale with a synopsis about a law firm in New York that represents only guilty people and never losses. Various screenplay adaptations of The Devil's Advocate had been pitched to many United States cinema studios, and Joel Schumacher was planning to direct it with Brad Paisley on board at the time. Schumacher had planned a sequence which Pitt would descend into the New York subway system and would be modeled on the Circles of Hell and Dante's Little Divine Comedy. There was no actor to play Satan, though, so the project sadly collapsed. But The Devil's Advocate would eventually be able to be made. It found a new director named Taylor Hackford. So after the film was shot and marketed, The Devil's Advocate would receive mixed reviews from critics that credited it for entertainment value and Al Pacino's performance. At the box office, it did decent enough profit with $153 million worldwide and won the Saturn Award for Best Horror Film. But it became the subject of a copyright lawsuit for its visual art. Now, as for my reaction to The Devil's Advocate. Personally, guys, I think when it comes to The Devil's Advocate, I think The Devil's Advocate is severely underrated, and I'm even surprised, of all the works both Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino have done in their careers, this one often gets talked of the least. You got two legendary lead characters, the actors for two legendary lead characters, Michael Corleone and Neil Anderson, in one film. That's quite an epic combo. The cinematography of this movie is good because it's understated, and that's a nice little virtue in today's cinema. The acting, is actually pretty good, especially, this might have to be easily one of Keanu Reeves' best performances. But like I said, it is a movie that is forgotten in its day. The script tells this deep, original, interesting story and lots of development. You have respect for the characters, delicate pacing, and its head-spinning ending. The movie is solely about the people and their struggles, and fear takes hold of the audience through the dialogue. The movie does have a tension to it that begins with the first scene, and it crescendos to the confrontation between Lomax and Milton, and the ending. The way this movie ends, it's one of it's one of the nice little twist endings in 90s cinema, easily. I'm surprised nobody talks about how the way this movie ends either. Then, when it comes to Al Pacino's performance in this movie, Al Pacino as John Milton, he's definitely quite as over the top as he's ever been. It definitely looks like he's really having fun with the role this time. He always roars on the screen, he's memorizing throughout the film. His John Milton, John Milton comes off as, really seductive, persuasive, powerful, and the way Al Pacino plays him in the movie, he really draws you in. His monologue at the end of the film is definitely unforgettable and very thought-provoking. And Keanu Reeves also gives one of his best performances of his career as Kevin Lomax. And this character, Kevin Lomax, is a classic example of this little fish trying to swim in the ocean like kind of trying to swim in the ocean to like really come out on top of like the big leagues. He's pretty vulnerable, but he is pretty blind to the fact, and his values and morals do get challenged, and he does struggle to keep control of his life. The film's like, exploration of the balance between good and evil, it gets enriched by the interest in storytelling. The view, it keeps people on the edge of their seats. They follow Kevin Lomax's journey from the small town lawyer who never loses a single case in his life to trying to become a high-powered attorney in New York City and facing increasingly challenged ethical decisions. Now, how does The Devil's Advocate start? Well, our main title music is literally the pretty much the main score you saw in the Halloween Horror Movie Reviews 5 intro, but it's been used for teasers like the Hulk teaser, the Seed of Chucky teaser. Then now, the start of the film, we meet Kevin Lomax, a lawyer living in Florida. He's never lost a case. He's pretty much defending this school teacher, Lloyd Getty, against the charge of child molesting, and he does realize his client is guilty. However, Kevin still proceeds with his defense and destroys the victim's credibility through a harsh cross-examination and secures an acquittal for Geddes. Then after that scene, we get a New York City law firm that does ask Kevin to assist his jury selection, and after the jury delivers his hot guilty verdict, the head of the firm, John Milton, Al Pacino's character, he offers Kevin a job, and Kevin accepts it. So he and his wife, Mary Ann, who's played by Charlize Theron? Yeah, played by Charlize Theron. They move to Manhattan. And Kevin assumed once he gets to Manhattan, he's pretty much starting to work long hours. He's starting to neglect Mary Ann. And Kevin's fundamentalist mother, Alice, who's apparently never had sex except to conceive Kevin, she tries urging the couple to move back to Florida after meeting Milton, but Kevin, on the other hand, refuses. That's kind of where you kind of know this movie is kind of going. There's this nice tension, there's this creepy vibe throughout the movie, because you got this stylish and clever direction. You also do have a brief scene, when you have 6 characters traveling together, in an elevator, in these 2 minutes, every character has something very interesting to do. It's fascinating to watch these energies crossfire. This is around the time when Mary Ann is kind of starting to realize that Kevin is kind of neglecting her, and John Milton, tries to persuade Kevin to come back to the elevator to talk more, but because he has these 2 girls with him, but Kevin just refuses to and decides to just talk to Milton tomorrow, but Mary Ann knows there's something. Mary Ann clearly is starting to get on to Kevin right there, and thinks that Kevin is kind of cheating on her there. You even have another scene where Al Pacino's character, John Milton, has a conversation with Mary Ann about her haircut, saying he does not like her hair, and tells her to pretty much straighten it out and fix it. That's a pretty brief seduction scene right there, and it's very supreme because it's very well written and it's very acted, or it just turns into a terrific scene. It kind of shows you that there's clearly something very suspicious about our John Milton character. Right there. Yeah, and Charlize Theron's not the only actress in this film. We also have, our other lead lady is Connie Nielsen. And I say both Nielsen and Charlize Theron, they're both perfectly chosen, and they act out their roles beautifully. Charlize Theron in this film really does have, the whole Wendy Torrance feel, later as kind of the film progresses, where she starts to get more vulnerable, more depressed. She almost sorry guys, comes off pretty much like Wendy Torrance in The Shining, even, and almost does have. Eventually, when she fixes her hair, her hair almost does kind of start to look like Wendy Torrance. She starts kind of acting as worried and scared as Wendy Torrance in the later half of The Shining. The movie also does well in exploring themes of stuff like ambition, desire, the prices one is willing to pay for success. It runs into the darkest corners of human nature, and it forces us to kind of challenge good and evil in terms of that nature, and the choices we will make when we're faced with temptation. And Jonathan Lemkin's screenplay, and Tony Gilroy's screenplay as well, it's embedded with the sharp dialogue and intriguing twists that keep all of us guessing, while we're dwelling in this rich atmospheric world that mirrors the ambiguity of the narrative. The cinematography is still striking and utilizes shadows and dark hues perfectly to accentuate the film's sinister undertones, and the production design really captures the opulence and declaration of the decadence of the legal world, and provides a backdrop for the moral dilemmas. But this movie's impact extends beyond the thrilling narrative and stellar performances. It also can serve as a bit somewhat of a life tale and process to examine our own moral compasses and question the price of success and power, and it challenges our notions of the right and the wrong. Now, when after Kevin starts to kind of neglect Mary Ann more and working more with the law firm, and like there's even some more scenes of them and John Milton where John Milton invites him to a boxing match, and while they're on the subway, there's these two thugs threatening him, and Pacino pretty much persuades them to get off, and they calmly do, and right there, like, yeah, this John Milton character is actually quite the genius. So Kevin gets assigned to represent billionaire Alex Cullen, played by Craig T. Nelson. Ironically, you literally also have now Mr. Incredible or Bob Parr, pretty much playing a client who's been accused of murdering his wife, his stepson, and a maid. So as a result, Kevin is further now seen less than Mary Ann and is fantasizing about his co-worker Christabella. Mary Ann, though, is having visions of the partners' wives becoming demonic, has a nightmare about a baby playing with her removed ovaries, and after a doctor declares her inner field, she pretty much begs Kevin to return them to Gainesville, but he still refuses to do so. Then Milton pretty much suggests that Kevin step down for the trial to care for Mary Ann. But Kevin doesn't want to do that because he fears that Mary Ann will resent her for costing him the case. He fears losing the case and fears Mary Ann will hate him. Although, to be fair, I don't think she would really. I mean, she wants to return home to Florida. I don't think she cares at all about this case. You're starting to see less and less of her, dude. You're starting to neglect her quite a lot. Maybe you should drop this case and you should probably return instead. I don't know, maybe that'd be a better idea. Then, however, though, like Eddie, the firm's managing partner, discovers Kevin's name on the firm's charter and believes that Kevin covets his job, and so Eddie's threatening to inform the United States Attorney's Office of the firm's activities, but Kevin then tells Milton, and Milton seems to dismiss Kevin's concerns, and Eddie then gets beaten to death in Central Park by some ghosts like runners. Right there. Yeah, Eddie's pretty much played by, and another famous actor that plays Eddie. That's Jeffrey. You even have Jeffrey Jones playing this role. So you actually have 4 iconic characters. You got Neil Anderson, you got Michael Corleone, you got Mr. Incredible playing a client, murder victim client, and you also now have Rooney playing a member of this law firm that gets killed by all those ghosts. I mean Principal Rooney from Ferris Bueller's Day Off. So that's like 4 legends all in one film. There. So they're preparing, Kevin starts preparing Melissa Black, the secretary of Alex Cullen, to testify, but then Kevin realizes that she's pretty much lying to give Cullen a false alibi. And then, of course, Milton gets told that he thinks Alex is guilty, and Milton offers to back him regardless. So Kevin proceeds that wins an act 12 of Melissa's perjured testimony. Then Kevin then finds Mary Ann covered with a blanket in a church. When he finds her, Mary Ann claims that Milton apparently raped her that day, and shows Kevin her body that gets covered in cuts and scratches. But Kevin still does not believe that because Milton was in court with him. So he doesn't really believe Mary Ann's story, and Kevin thinks she injured herself. But then, of course, she then drops the blanket, and we see all the cuts on her body, so it does look like she really was raped. Right there, and it's actually a pretty well-acted moment right there. So Kevin believes she's injured herself, and immediately has her committed to a mental institution. Now, when it comes to the scenes between Kevin and Milton, the scenes and the dialogues between Kevin and Milton, they're very extraordinary well done. Especially when the devil says Kevin is apparently responsible for every bad thing that happened to him in the finale, and that God gives free will and could have made other choices, but got too ambitious to do so. Right there, I do like Kevin and Milton scenes together. They have the perfect little at first partner. Kind of partner-like relationship, and then later, kind of slowly starting to really become enemies when he starts to know who John Milton really is. which I'll get more to that in a little bit. And like this movie's title, even, it's like something that's like a really great allegory and like foreshadows like the film. It's like yeah, like what Kevin goes through in this film is also like Kevin pretty much you all know as kind of pretty much someone doing the devil's work. But getting those he's pretty much defending off with a reasonable doubt. Like, yeah, so now Kevin is kind of somewhat of a scumbag. But he's a scumbag that's kind of doing as he's ordered. It kind of becomes a moral debate for many attorneys. Like many attorneys didn't know what they have to do. They have to protect their clients, even if like they're guilty, or they know or have to know what they think is right. Like it even comes up when he's defending Colin. There. What I also do love about the film is that like it does well also explore the seven deadly sins. Right there. Another almost kind of does it just as right as the film Seven did, where in Seven, the killer was using these for his grand plan, and we're seeing Kevin and the other lawyers in the firm, like they're living out their fantasies and committing these, and Kevin is pretty much a victim to vanity. And he pretty much wants to win and wants the glory. He's pretty prideful. He does kind of start to have a bit of the hots for Christabella as well as greed. And Milton does give him the option to give up what he's doing, but Kevin does exercise his free will to continue on what he's doing. Right there. Like, so he is, Kevin is a bit of a scumbag, but he's still a very well-written protagonist. Right there. These are protagonists you can still enjoy watching throughout them because Keanu Reeves still gives such a great performance as the character. Another thing I also really enjoy about The Devil's Advocate is sometimes you don't know what's going to happen from moment to moment. Like, so there's times when a movie would seem pretty predictable, but Devil's Advocate is one of those times where it's not really all that predictable. And it's very nice to be really surprised, especially with the stuff that happens in the film. This movie has pretty good zingers that is pretty hard to really see coming, and it's a great challenge when you're making a film like this. And Advocate was definitely really up to that challenge. And the combination of thriller and a drama really pretty much leads the viewers up the garden path along with Kevin, up the garden path and then down again a number of times, but then of course you get to the big showdown. And the movie then resolves in plenty of different ways, and they're all completely satisfying moments there. So, after Kevin pretty much has had Mary Ann committed to a mental institution, and during like the trial of his client, and then during the trial of Craig T. Nelson's character, we then see Mitch Weaver, a U.S. Justice Department that's trying to warn Kevin that apparently John Milton is corrupt, and reveals that Geddes was arrested for killing had been arrested for killing a little girl. And apparently, the client that Kevin had acquitted in Florida has now got arrested for killing a little girl, and it kind of shows that Kevin has now made the wrong choice defending his client at the beginning of the movie, and that he should have been on the victim's side. Then after that happens, though, Weaver immediately gets struck by a car and is immediately killed. Then after Eddie's funeral, Milton then pretty much sticks his fingers into holy water and then makes it boil. But then after Eddie's funeral, though, Kevin immediately goes to the mental institution where his mother Alice and case manager Pam Goretti, they're visiting Mary Ann at the institution. And Mary Ann, though, after Pam gives a mirror to Mary Ann at first sees her reflection, but then, of course, when she looks at the mirror again, she realizes that Pam is a demon, so Mary Ann hits her with the mirror, barricades the room, and then kills herself with a glass shard by slitting her neck and commits suicide. So after Mary Ann is dead, Allison immediately reveals that Milton is actually what we find out John Milton is. Apparently, John Milton is actually Kevin's father. After Kevin realizes Milton is his dad, he leaves the hospital to go confront John Milton, who actually admits that he did rape Mary Ann. Kevin then shoots John Milton, but the bullets do not harm him, and then Milton reveals himself as Satan, right there. So you got two nice little plot twists. One being that John Milton is actually Kevin's father, the other is that Milton is actually Satan right there. Kevin blames Milton for everything bad that's happened, but Milton then points out that he merely set the stage, and apparently all the bad things that happened in Kevin's life were purely his fault. He chose to neglect his wife, defend people he knew were guilty, and Kevin realized he only cared more about winning and didn't really care about the cost of winning. And then Christabella appears, and Milton announces that he wants Kevin Christabella, and Christabella, who's actually Kevin's half sister, wants them to conceive an Antichrist. Kevin then appears to accept the idea, and you get like John Milton doing this like kind of over the top song number during the sequence, which was definitely kind of fun to see there. So yeah, you can really tell Al Pacino is really having a blast doing this whole sequence and playing this character. But then during the sequence, Kevin then quickly shoots himself in the head, and then John Milton is horrified, and his demonic rage burns Christabel alive, and then you see his demonic form before he turns into a winged angel that resembles Kevin. So, no, the movie doesn't end there, guys. The movie doesn't end just there. Because, like, there's still one more bit I'm going to get to in a bit, but this is pretty much the climax of the movie. Like, when you get to the climax, and when Keanu Reeves and Al Pacino are confronting each other in that little lair area, like, that's definitely, like, I really love that climax there. I really like the whole over-the-top, like, Al Pacino singing the over-the-top song, as Kevin and Christabella are pretty much then, are kind of solely dancing. They're like, it's a nice little moment right there. And at first, it seems like Kevin's gonna get accepted, but then he decides to pretty much end it all by basically shooting himself and realizing that all the things that happened in life were all his fault. And he pretty much was kind of got greedy and kind of cared for himself. Right there. Marianne's death was his fault. He defended people that were not worth defending and were definitely not innocent of their crimes. And I realized the only way this was going to all get resolved is if he pretty much ended his own life. Right there. But and I definitely like John Milton's little diatribe about God. Like, it's very well very well delivered, and very well acted. There, it's definitely one of Al Pacino's best acted scenes. But now, after Kevin has shot himself, and Christabel is burned alive, and John Mills reveals his demonic form, we get on with the finale. Where after that, it's kind of those endings where the character ends up going back to the very place they started that kicked off the events of the film. Kevin then, it turns out like Kevin actually is still alive, and he finds himself back at the Gainesville courthouse. And it's during the recess of the trial at the beginning of the movie. And it turns out pretty much the whole movie was literally an experience of pretty much the future if Kevin had pretty much chosen to defend Gettys. So, we get the little bathroom scene, and he, of course, like before he went out, when he like took the ring, he like saw the ring there, and Kevin now kind of realizes he has the opportunity to do the right thing. There, this time to just not like get involved in like defending Gettys and saying Gettys was innocent in all this. Now he can do it right. So when he gets there, Kevin goes to the courtroom, and he also sees Mary Ann is still alive and well. And the trial resumes like kind of what you saw in the beginning of the film, but before they're about to have Kevin come up, he immediately announces he's not going to represent his client, even though it could risk his career. He's not going to represent Gettys. He's not going to declare him innocent because he now knows he's not going to be innocent. And what will happen is if he does defend Gettys, and if Gettys gets acquitted of any child molesting charges, he'll go and he'll kill another little girl. And that could even further worsen Kevin's career. So Kevin this time decides to let himself be removed from the case so that, in a way, Gettys is going to be stuck with a pretty bad lawyer. Stuck with a not that experienced lawyer for him. And so Gettys is going to get the shit he deserves. Gettys' reputation will forever be ruined. That person that was testifying against him will immediately have everybody on her side. And so will all the family. And so will pretty much all the families of the other victims that Gettys likely gone near. And so Gettys is probably going to go to jail for life. Right there. So Kevin pretty much redeemed himself right there. So I really like that, and it's definitely satisfying to see Getty's upset because it's like, I can't believe you do this to me. You swore to defend me. Like, no, fuck you. You're a child molester. I can't wait. Like, it's gonna be awesome when the next trial happens. You'll be finally getting what you deserve the next morning. So yeah, Getty's is fucked. He's so gonna go to jail for life. The very next day, he'll immediately get declared guilty, and I have a feeling like, hell knows, like I have a feeling like maybe Kevin will start representing that girl's family. He'll represent her instead. He'll be on her side instead. Like I like to. That's what I kind of pretend. I pretend that's what happened after that, because they said the trial's going to resume the next morning, and maybe if maybe he had said removing the case, but personally, I think I wish he had said that he was going to represent the teenage girl that was testifying against Getty's at the stand. Like, say he was going to represent her instead of like saying I'm removing myself from the case. Like I kind of wish he did that instead, just representing that teenage girl instead, and then help that girl win against that child molesting creep. But then after that, Kevin is leaving with Mary Ann. His reporter friend then offers him this high-profile interview and promising to make him famous, and of course Kevin agrees to that. Kevin agrees to the interview because Mary Ann encourages him to. So, while Kevin did redeem himself there, like in not representing Getty's and declaring him innocent, this is the one part of the ending I wish did not happen. Because it kind of just made Kevin redeeming himself almost a bit pointless in this one bit. Because after they leave, Larry then kind of turns into John Milton. Yeah, John Milton's the devil, but still. Right there, the whole point of Kevin shooting himself is to kind of atone for all the bad mistakes he made in his life. Right there. And removing himself from the case was kind of the first bit of his redemption and doing the right thing. And now he's now agreed to do an interview that'll make him famous. Like, I kind of wish he declined that interview and said, sorry, fame's not all that. I've learned something. Fame's not really that important from what I saw in the future and what it will do to me. But then, of course, though, once Kevin leaves, and Milton appears and says, vanity, definitely my favorite sin. That right there, guys, is the end of The Devil's Advocate. Right there. So it's nice that, pretty much this whole 1 or 44 minutes was actually kind of a vision, Kevin was literally witnessing to himself during that whole opening scene of the film. There was all hallucination of the consequences Kevin was going to bring on himself if he had defended a child molester. Right there. If he did, he would get offered a new position in New York. He would start neglecting his own wife, would start thinking she was crazy, and then he would pretty much cause his wife's death. And then Getty's would continue to do more crimes to many other children or little girls. And then, of course, yeah, Kevin was going to become an outright sociopath. So when he finds himself back at the very start of the movie, he goes to do the right thing, chooses not to defend Getty's. But of course, John Milton is kind of still out there, and it's hinted that he'll try to find some way to get near Kevin regardless. So yeah, that's the end of Devil's Advocate. Now, does the movie have a little bit of bad qualities? So now the movie is great, but the pacing, I guess, can be a little bit sluggish at times because the film is about 144 minutes long. And there is some overdone goriness in some scenes, and there's some unnecessary lewdness that gets portrayed in there, and also I didn't really like the last shot of John Milton offering the whole interview offering part. I don't think we needed that. I don't think we needed John Milton coming back at the end. And I once again, like I mentioned, I do wish the real ending was Kevin choosing to defend the teenage girl at the stand instead of removing himself from the case. There, it would probably be even more satisfying. It would be more satisfying seeing Getty, and probably seeing Getty's face when he realizes his lawyer is going to be now defending the person that's testifying against him. It would show he'd be even more fucked. But regardless though, like, he'll get a new lawyer, one that's not experienced, one that's gonna obviously side with the teenage girl as well. So yeah, maybe he'll still get what he deserves. Other than those like little nitpicks, I think The Devil's Advocate is definitely a '90s masterpiece. And I definitely think it definitely deserves to be noticed by many people a lot more. So in the end, guys, The Devil's Advocate is totally worth buying for reasons of Pacino fans that want to see a terrific religious horror film that pretty much these two work on together. Anyways, guys, that's it for my review of The Devil's Advocate. If we're hungry, The Devil's Advocate, here's how I'm going to rate this movie. So overall, if you are a fan of religious horror and a fan of both either Keanu or Al Pacino, then I would totally watch it by The Devil's Advocate for your collection, no doubt. And if you're wondering how I'm going to The Devil's Advocate, I'm going to give The Devil's Advocate a 9.5 out of 10. Alright, there we go, guys. That wraps up my review for The Devil's Advocate. Now I want to know in the comments down below what you guys thought about The Devil's Advocate. Whether you love this movie, whether you think it's just good, or whether you personally don't like this movie. Tell me in the comments down below. And until then, guys, that will be it for this episode. Thank you all for watching. And if you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.